In front of you is a tough winter on the front. This is also a tough winter on the front. But the real tough winter on the front looks like this. Despite the crazy challenges, Ukrainian soldiers keep their sense of humor alive. Honestly, winter is our time. We're practically the knights of the winter campaign. Summer's rough, but winter? Oh, it's just perfect. -40 and we're ready to charge. Gotta keep the humor alive. Yeah, no choice. Humor is the shield for the soul. So, what's their secret to enduring such brutal conditions? And how does winter impact the war itself? This year, winter arrived in the front lines earlier than expected. Second winter's behind us, third one's coming up. I love my job. First off, winter hits infantry hardest, and the golden rule of infantry in this war is simple. Want to stay alive? Start digging. But here's the catch. Winter soil is so frozen that digging with a shovel feels like trying to break concrete with a spoon. Enter the sappers. Of course, blowing up the ground on the front line isn't exactly discreet or practical, but on the second line, it's game on. The method? Lay some mines, light the fuse, wait 5 minutes, boom, and voila, a cozy little hideout. Now, you might be wondering, why not just bring in an excavator? Wouldn't that be easier? Well, aerial reconnaissance has other plans. Modern drones can spot heavy machinery from miles away, making even second-line construction a risky move. So, most of the digging falls to the good old infantry and sappers. Working in winter is just as the textbook says. The probing rod doesn't bend. Perfect. And let's get one thing straight. Ukrainian winters rarely look like those cozy Christmas movies with fluffy snow and twinkling lights. It's more like cold, wet misery. Snow and dampness become enemies as brutal as the Russians. If you're curious about how it feels to hunker down in a trench during winter, this soldier sums it up perfectly. Always wondered what it's like in a trench during the winter. Cold. Surviving in these conditions often comes down to clever tricks, some of which are pretty hilarious. For example, here's how they tackle icy terrain. We've come up with a special technique for this weather. Let's call it the slip and splat solution. Behold, unique footage you'll only find in the Ukrainian armed forces. Why, here you ask? Because these are standard issue socks. That's right, and to keep our feet warm, we just throw on another layer over them. Don't forget to smash that like button for their humor. But seriously, staying dry and warm is the #1 priority during a winter war. That's where the trusty trench candle comes in. These candles are handmade by civilians, with kids often joining the effort. You can cook a meal, boil a liter of water in 20 to 30 minutes, or even dry out an entire dugout using just a few of these during their burn cycle. Depending on the situation, soldiers use them for all sorts of things. We ran out of gas canisters, so now we're heating water for coffee with a trench candle. Making one is pretty straightforward. All you need is an empty can, some wax or paraffin, and cardboard. 1 kilogram of paraffin makes about 4 medium-sized candles. And no, you don't need a PhD to put one together. Just roll the cardboard right and try not to burn yourself with hot wax. This cheap, versatile heater is a favorite among soldiers at the front, and it's got a surprising bonus. It's a sneaky little sniper trap. Take a bit of tin, put the candle behind it, it heats up like crazy. Then we set up an ambush and wait for the sniper to take the bait. They'll target the heat signature, thinking there's someone sitting there, and give away their position. When open flames aren't an option, soldiers rely on chemical hand warmers as their primary heat source on the front lines. So I toss this thing in and bam! Some sort of chemical reaction happens. Don't ask me for a scientific breakdown, I have no idea how it works. But it gets hot, and that's what matters. Still, no matter how many external heat sources you have, the foundation of staying warm and dry in winter is proper gear. The Ukrainian Armed Forces winter uniform is inspired by the US Army's layered approach, but with some tweaks. The kit includes base layers, thermal underwear, a fleece layer, and an outer waterproof shell. It's not the full 7-layer extravaganza, but it's enough to stay warm in most winter conditions. We'll definitely survive winter with this gear. Welcome to the Ukrainian Army. Yep, let's talk about boots. Ukrainian Army winter boots have come a long way. The new Talons are decent quality, but not every soldier gets issued a pair. And even if they do, one pair is nowhere near enough for active combat conditions. That's why many soldiers buy extra boots themselves. So, what do you think? Will these new talons do the job? Building a livable setup in winter is exponentially harder. The best solution? Build your positions in summer whenever possible. The Russians have earned a reputation for their engineering skills, but Ukrainians have their own tricks. Check this out, a whole underground town. Endless tunnels, doors like you'd find in an apartment. Behind one door, there's a bathhouse, a rest area, water tanks, sinks, even tiled walls. And here, a sauna. It's safe down here, great for avoiding shelling. But the real magic is the surprise factor. You can enter at one point and pop out somewhere totally unexpected. Through these tunnels, a machine gunner can move smoothly and confidently to a firing position and send a warm hello to an enemy sabotage group. Impressive, right? If you're curious about more creative tactics like this, subscribe to our channel. And now we come to the toughest part of winter warfare, combat itself. Fighting in winter is a whole different beast compared to warmer seasons. I just got off a night shift, stepped out to take a leak in my thermals, and bam, winter hit me. We'll get through this. For starters, the leafy trees and bushes, nicknamed Zelenka, that provide natural cover during warmer months are gone in the winter. Without them, soldiers rely on special camouflage capes to stay hidden. While these don't protect against thermal imaging, they do reduce the chances of being spotted visually, and sometimes that's enough to make all the difference. No matter how well you camouflage, when the enemy advances, it's time to fight back. They're digging in just across the canal, barely 200 meters away. We can't let them fortify, so we're doing everything we can to pick them off as they approach. Trench combat in winter is grueling. It takes skill, focus, and sheer determination. With low visibility, mud underfoot, and weapons malfunctioning from the damp, soldiers often face impossible odds. Load the RPG. It's soaked. Give me another one, fast. In this clip, you can see two soldiers holding off an enemy advance in tough conditions. So you've got an 82mm mortar mine rigged to your grenade launcher. Did you modify it yourself? Yeah, it's really effective against infantry. But it didn't work. Didn't fire. Probably the powder was damp, so it just didn't go off. These clashes can last for hours, sometimes even days, without a break. Soldiers often rest and warm up right in the middle of battle. Well, the weather's not great, just a few short-lived showers. On top of everything else, frostbite is a serious risk. Even with all the tricks to stay warm, frozen fingers make the already difficult infantry work even harder. When we first got here, it was bitterly cold. People were freezing. There were cases of frostbite, and a lot of guys got sick, coughing, the usual stuff. You end up having to treat yourself however you can. Ukrainian medics are working at their limits. But on the front lines, it's not just the soldiers who need help. Civilians who refuse to evacuate from combat zones face an even harsher winter. Enemy shelling destroys critical infrastructure, leaving locals in freezing homes without electricity, gas, or heat, all while under the constant threat of being injured or killed by shrapnel. Efforts are made to evacuate them despite the constant danger. Why don't you want to leave? I don't know, I'm just scared. Scared of what? I don't know. It's for your safety, so nothing hits here. You'd be better off leaving. You see what's happening. I see, but it upsets me so much. I just don't know. It's really better to go. I'm telling you the truth. Start getting ready. A vehicle will be here soon to take you somewhere safe. I'm not going. After missions like this, soldiers return to their positions. Put on warm socks. It's effing freezing out there. Yeah? Time to get back to work, and the cycle begins again. It's worth taking a moment to talk about the civilians. Every soldier in the trenches fights for the people they're protecting. But those same people suffer too, enduring relentless missile strikes on energy infrastructure meant to keep them warm during the winter. In April 2024, a missile strike destroyed the Tripilia thermal power plant, one of Ukraine's largest, which supplied electricity to 3 regions. And that's just one chapter in Russia's systematic destruction of civilian infrastructure. Here's how one worker from the plant reacted to its destruction. We're so worried about the town, about how many people live here. It's such a beautiful place, and they're just destroying it. I can't even put it into words. We've done everything we could to maintain and care for this station. Winter warfare doesn't just test soldiers and civilians, it pushes equipment to its limits too. If the vehicle suddenly stalls, we jump out, hit the ground using terrain for cover, and wait for further instructions. Cold weather hits artillery first. In freezing temperatures, artillery can lose up to a kilometer of range. For artillery units, that's huge. Another issue is mobility. Frost makes moving guns like towed howitzers significantly harder. When a crew sets up on a new position, they often have to dig the gun in partially. As it fires, it digs itself deeper into the frozen ground, making it tough to move later. Extracting it can require heavy machinery like Ural or Kamaz trucks, which risk drawing unwanted attention. Wheeled vehicles don't have it any easier. Drivers who fail to winterize their vehicles are in for a bad time. Even with fluid changes, tire swaps, and other prep work, there's no guarantee your truck or APC will survive until spring. Winter also demands greater attention to detail, especially with camouflage. Camouflage nets play a critical role here. Our mission is to supply frontline assault units with critical resources. To do this, we need operational, functional vehicles for evacuation and transport. To protect these vehicles, we absolutely need camouflage nets. These nets help conceal vehicles in snowy conditions, shielding both the equipment and personnel from detection. In the end, one thing is clear. Fighting a war in winter is incredibly challenging. That's why combat activity tends to slow down along most front lines during the colder months of the Russian-Ukrainian war. But even with this slowdown, soldiers remain in the trenches, dugouts, and buildings along the entire line of contact. No matter how tough it gets, these men and women stand their ground, enduring a third winter to hold back Russia's full-scale invasion. For Ukrainians, winter is no longer about Christmas and festivities. Instead, it's a season of grit and survival. But let's hold on to hope that these harsh, cold months bring Ukrainians closer to peace and victory. What other parts of a soldier's life would you like us to cover next? Life in the trenches? Soldiers' gear? Or what they eat daily? Let us know in the comments.